Let's turn it over to Aaron.
Trial Tuesday once again. Today we're discussing a recent incident out of North Charleston. Charges have been dropped against a police officer accused of criminal domestic violence. Attorney David Aylor is here to discuss the case. David, as always, good morning.
Good morning.
And it kind of got complicated because
Right.
there was an update. So let's just start from the beginning and tell me about the charges of domestic violence and then what happened after that.
Well, originally you had an officer who was charged with criminal domestic violence. The accuser was a female that was not his wife. He was married, but it was another lady that he was friends with, allegedly. And ultimately she had claimed that he hit her in the face and was threatening her, and actually alleged to have video of it, recording actually. So he was put on paid leave, or unpaid leave rather, with the police department there in North Charleston while the case sort of developed. Ultimately on Monday, the charges were dismissed by Scarlett Wilson, citing a number of reasons, but particularly that they couldn't get an establishment of the facts to corroborate anything that she actually said. And in fact, the video that she had and gave to them conflicted with what she actually said.
So, and there was also something with the timeline that she reported it or something.
Right. You always have a number of things that they look at, and one in this case was the timeline of being 6 days afterwards. When you have an assault or maybe a rape or anything like that, usually that's something you're going to see reported within 24 hours. Now, there are occasions where that's not the case, but usually that's what you would see. And when you don't, you really start to question the authenticity of it. So there's a number of things, like I said, that Scarlett as well as the police department is going to look at in these type of cases to determine whether or not someone's actually credible, because a lot of times you're going on the basis of just one person's story.
He said, she said, basically.
Right, exactly.
So charges were dropped, you know, he's happy about that, but then she's in jail.
She is. She's in jail for attempted murder. She allegedly came to his home where he and his wife live, and actually had a firearm, and there were shots fired into his house as well as around the neighborhood. So since this has occurred, that happened on Sunday night, I believe. She's now been put in jail with a high bond, I believe, of $800,000 for 3 counts of attempted murder.
Wow. And back to him, now that the charges have been dropped, can he return to work immediately, or is there a waiting period?
He is. He's returned to work now. They've reinstated him there at the North Charleston Police Department, and whether or not he's going to get back pay is still in question. But it is an important case to look at, because of course when you saw it at the very beginning, it looked really bad. It looked like an officer had become a criminal. But then once the facts really take some time to come out and they do the investigation that they did, you see that that's not always the case. I think a lot of times when we see things in the news and things like that, you just automatically think, oh, that person did this or did that, or didn't do this, didn't do that. But then when actual cases go forward, you have to understand that the probable cause standard, and that's what it takes to arrest someone, is very low, but it's nowhere close to what would have to be considered to be someone to be found guilty.
So what can we learn from this? I mean, what exactly, you were talking about what they look at in cases like this. What are certain things they analyze?
Well, they're going to analyze, has the person have any history of doing things like that? In this situation, this same female had accused someone else of other types of threatening behavior back in 2007, ironically also a police officer. They're also going to look at, what would be the potential reasons that why they would report this. Is there another motive? And then also just the physical aspects, if there is any. If they were hit, are you seeing any kind of wounds on the body? When you have a recording, a video, does it make sense? And then again, as you mentioned, the timeline. So there's so many different factors that they're going to come into play when trying to determine if that person's testimony would be credible and is credible enough to go forward. However, if they determine that it is the case, they will take a case all the way to trial just based off somebody's testimony.
Gotcha. And last quick question, someone watching this, if they do feel like they have domestic violence in their own home, they need to report right away. Is that what we learned?
Right. You always want to try to report as soon as possible, and so they can get a record of it. A lot of times people are hesitant to do that for obvious reasons, the relationship they have with the person. On the other side, if you are accused of something like this, you want to make sure that you get counsel as soon as possible, because you can see that a lot of times people can be arrested for things they actually don't do.
All right. David Aylor, Trial Tuesday, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, and we'll have much more on Low Country Live right after the break, so stay with us.
Trial Tuesday, brought to you by attorney David Aylor.